Turning to business news now with Nona Peltier. Hi, Nona. The telecommunications industry pondering some revisions to propose changes to the Telecommunications Act. I have here on my notes in front of me, but I'd rather you talked about that than me.
It sounds a bit complicated, and it kind of is. It's taken a long time to sort through telecommunications lines issues. There's been a bit of a fight about it for many years. You know, the Telecommunications Act was amended. It separated Chorus from Spark, as we know.
I remember the unbundling. You know, boy, that goes back to, I think David Cunliffe was the minister then, and Teresa Gatting was CEO of Telecom. You know, this is always contentious and contested over. And
well, there was always the guarantee about, you know, keeping the telephone service so that everyone would have access to a telephone service in rural New Zealand and so on. Well, today, the telecommunications minister, Simon Bridges, released an update on the review that's been going on, indicating that perhaps it may be that protection comes off the copper network.
Right.
So that sparked a reaction, not necessarily from Spark, but certainly it did from the Telecommunication Users Association, which were the strong advocates for that regulation in the get-go. So they're saying, well, okay, it kind of makes sense that you would deregulate in a place where there are other options, so fiber networks, etc., and better services available. Not so much in a rural area, that would still be controlled. But they're still reluctant to back that because, you know, when you start breaking things apart, then, you know, it's a slippery slope, I suppose. And so the telecommunications users are not convinced that that's the way to go.
Is the minister just floating this?
Well, it's in the report, so whether it's being floated or not, it is something that's definitely on the table, right? The Chorus, they really didn't say a lot about that, but they did talk a bit about some other issues that have to do with the unbundling of the copper network from regulation, changing that framework, and what that would mean in terms of investment into those high-cost rural areas. What would be the incentive then to bring in those fiber networks into those areas that have copper? Okay, they're protected, but does that mean that there's going to be some orphan parts of New Zealand? Could happen. So let's watch that space. It's not a done deal for sure, but it's a work in progress.
Did you just use the phrase orphan parts?
Orphan.
What a lovely phrase. If you are listening and you think you're in an orphan part, contact us and tell us what you think about all of this.
Yes, I mean, for sure, because you've got till March 1st to contribute something to this review and let the minister know what you think, especially, I suppose, in rural areas. That will be a much bigger issue than for people in the big cities.
Thanks, Nona. How did the markets finish the week?
There's something else you don't know about.
But wait, there's more.
Wait, there's more. I wouldn't call it a birthday surprise, but the Bike Barn, and people might be familiar with that, they sell bikes. They've been fined $800,000 today. The court, it's one of the largest fines handed down through the Fair Trading Act, and they pleaded guilty to charges, 18 charges related to misleading pricing. And you might wonder, what kind of misleading pricing?
Is that when you go in and there's a sale on everything, but in fact...
That's right. So what happened was the Bike Barn and the companies associated with it, that's the Bike Retail Group, Bikes International Limited, they basically were advertising bikes at a discounted price with, you know, the final days, that kind of thing. But in fact, those were the regular prices. And a study by the Commerce Commission found that out of nearly 6,000 bike sales, only 30 ever sold at the full price.
Wow.
Yeah. And
$800,000 fine.
800,000, yeah. So anyways.
Well, sorry, the people who bought bikes from the Bike Barn believing they were getting bikes on sale that weren't on sale, that's not addressed.
Well, I don't know if you can take some...
should be split amongst them, Nona.
I'm not sure what's going to happen with that, but that's not in my script. Right. I don't know.
Thanks, Nona.
If you have bought a bike at the Bike Barn, perhaps you can call the Commerce Commission and ask them what that's
about.
Your share. It's got nothing to do with me. Okay. Now, the New Zealand dollar. Okay, well, it ended at 72 cents at 94.1 Australian, and by popular demand, the pence, 57.5 pence. Now, that's a pretty good result for the New Zealand dollar because the U.S. dollar was up high after President Donald Trump talked about some extraordinary tax deals to come corporate way in the next couple of weeks. So we'll see what happens with that. And the New Zealand Top 50 Index fell about 0.25% today. It was down 17 points, 7,104.